Inspired by OMAD's growing popularity and of course some comments I got not a while ago, I wanted to create a sequel to my last video. Instead of focusing on studies and scientific information, however, this time I decided to address a few other things. 1. What has changed since publishing the mentioned video. 2. A short summary of my current eating regimen. 3. Why I plan to stick to OMAD forever, i.e. naming the exact reasons for seeing it as far superior to all other regimens. And 4. Finish with my perspective on it as one doing it for more than half of a decade. That being said, let's run some intro and dive deep into the first. What has changed and what I do now? Well, the truth of the matter is that nothing really did. I mean, why would I try to fix or change something since the same gives me the absolute best results, not just in terms of physique and appearance, but also regarding all aspects of my life. What that thing is? Well, to sum it all up, I'll say that I never eat more than once per day, stick to the same food selection, and though occasionally do incorporate 1 or 2 weekly 48-hour fasts. Appreciating food not just for its nutrients and taste, but also for its downer drug properties. To me, eating and sleeping always go hand to hand. Of course, that really doesn't mean eating in bed or while sleeping, but rather never doing it until the time for hitting the sack comes. I guess it is safe to say that though rarely, I make sure it is well worth it when I eat, and for that I rely on the best foods I can afford, and until reaching the absolute fullness and satiety. No, I never track calories and neither try to fit things in my unknown to me macros. What I do instead is merely following a few simple rules with my OMAD. 1. Never eating until close to an hour before bedtime. 2. Never tracking calories nor macros, but ensuring my meal contains enough protein regardless of the food combinations I have on a given day. 3. Staying away from all sorts of toxic and craving-causing junk while sticking to the foods eating which is actually beneficial, thus once in a while worth breaking a fast. Just in case you wonder, the former to include any kind of processed sugars, hydrogenated oils, GMOs, additives, preservatives, various toxins like lectins, and especially fructose. 4. Not eliminating any macronutrient in the long run, but also never mixing carbs with fats, or in other words, alternating between having nothing but animal fats and proteins, and incorporating some very nutritious, non-toxic, and most importantly tolerable to me starches and veggies. Now, the reasons why I plan to do this forever. Even though not by itself, the optimized in that manner OMAD plan provided me with several life-changing benefits. They not just became a solution to many of my day-to-day problems, but also to all of those I had regarding my physique. Starting with the written with capital letters freedom, that also includes the previously unavailable to me high energy levels, brain performance, uplifted mood, and lean gains some people still don't believe are entirely natural. Formerly thinking those were only possible through the usage of gear and speed like drugs, now I kinda celebrate them on a daily, and because of that I'll say a few words about each. Though by freedom I actually mean quite a few things. First on the list undoubtedly comes that of cravings, hunger, and pretty much any desire to mess with or think of food. Now, I really don't know about you, but my family struggled financially in the past. I used to get stoned as a motherfucker as a teenager, and later followed some traditional fitness diets. While the first two made me nowhere near as hungry as the last, the bottom line is that I hate cravings and hunger from the bottom of my heart. Do you know what else? I also don't feel any different about the whole idea of turning food into a mind-preoccupying and entertaining social drug. No offense if you're a foodie, or that's merely how you prefer to live, but I think that there are much better and truthfully meaningful things to be excited about. Having that perspective, however, was literally unthinkable before suppressing my appetite through a proper diet and of course the OMAD plan. Now let me tell you something based on the experiences I have with various substances. The quote-unquote food high is extremely overrated and to me personally really isn't that different than what's commonly referred to as stoned as a motherfucker. While for the past decade I really didn't mess with the latter, eating quickly reminds me of how the same felt every time when I do it. Totally distracted and uninterested in the current situation, I don't want to deal with anything nor anyone but fall asleep. Yes, in both cases I feel heavy. It's just that food doesn't increase my shyness, or at least it doesn't to that unimaginable extent, and neither causes me to think that everything is stupid. Gratification delay and the non-consumer lifestyle. No, I really don't like when people use those so-called motivational quotes, like for instance, what are you truly hungry for, and etc. Apart from not motivating, those also never made any sense to me. Sure, the gratification delay plays a huge role. That, however, really isn't because of hunger, but mainly because of its absence. So let me explain. Though some people may disagree, to me, hunger is nothing more than an incredibly annoying and utterly unnecessary distraction. One which, different than the sex urge, really can't be utilized and neither redirected towards something productive. Hunger and cravings not just make delaying gratification quite not possible and prevent one from making sober decisions, but could also be very embarrassing. Now, guess what? Following a regimen like the one I described makes both of them disappear. In fact, permanent hunger suppression is not only entirely possible, but can be easily attained through several simple adjustments. 1. Elimination of all craving-causing foods. 2. Following a diet that boosts the production of the satiety signals PYY and CCK. 3. Using a restricted feeding window. No longer needing the caused by eating dopamine hits, which by the way are identical to those induced by drugs. Now you are in full control of that aspect of your life. Thus you more easily find pleasure where you previously couldn't and get to decide how to experience it. Then you become much more productive and start getting the very gentle yet mighty high of this fasted life. The muscles grow while the brain runs like a well-taught machine. The stomach stays empty while the waist and midsection smaller, yet the mind is satiated, knowing that the person makes the most out of her day. Living like that for 5 years made me experience more joy from what I do than all that I got from eating since I was born. Kind of a self-discovering, the same period showed me something very substantial, namely that unless addicted to sex and fapping, drugs, and especially food, which although is equally addictive, can compare with the former two regarding pleasure, I am merely not wired to perceive those three as a primary real source of happiness. In my heart that place is reserved for my crafts and my passion for researching the things I am interested in. To realize it, however, I needed to see things from a mature and sober perspective. While no fap provided that for the first, the second I quit purely through willpower when I was 20, the described combination of that and OMAD did all of the work for the last. Now I much rather get my gratification from creating and not consuming. Hence I more or less see this whole thing as a sort of a non-consumer lifestyle. And yes, the same I'd still live even if no one watches my videos, reads my stuff or listens to my music. Creating and building things, including my physique, of course, provides me with a priceless, unattainable through the three mentioned feeling. And I believe that once experienced, that feeling truly changes the life of a person. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, let me address two things I never spoke of. Formerly mentioning sex reminds me that similar to the crazier pumps I get at the gym when fasted, the first is 100 times better. So let me tell you what the main reasons for that are. A. Not eating food allows me to feel way better my own and my partner's body, thus get a far superior experience. B. While fasting increases my ability to stay present and be at the moment, eating blows the crap out of me and basically does the complete opposite. After eating, I'm really not in the mood for connecting with anyone, let alone for having sex with them. C. When fasted, I feel super light and leaner, and after around the 16th hour, my stomach assumes a slight vacuum and my vascularity dramatically increases. By making me feel way more attractive, that also greatly boosts my performance in bed. Because of that, I highly recommend it to anyone, including the ones already succeeding with NoFap. Adding fasting on top of NoFap takes your performance in bed to a whole new level. For similar reasons, I also recommend fasting, especially the OMAD plan, to those having a daily spiritual hygiene or regimen, yoga, meditation, or some more dramatic action and intense visualizations requiring rituals. Fasting increases your focus, makes you experience everything more vividly, and move from one to another with greater ease. So I suggest taking that under consideration. And now let's get back to the freedom I already told you about. The same is also one of some very counterproductive and plenty of suffering causing restrictions. For instance, using willpower and discipline to either eat, not eat, eat something you don't want to, and stop at certain number of calories isn't just a total waste of resources, but in fact leads to consequences like willpower depletion and decision fatigue. And no, that's not because you're bad and undisciplined, but because your willpower and discipline are actually futile against your hormones. Here I'll also add that based on my experience, the purpose of improving willpower and decision making can be easily defeated if one's in a constant worry whether or not, what and how much to eat. Thus, I'm not willing to develop those faculties to merely waste them on that never-ending, mental health-ruining nonsense. Luckily, the OMAD plan I follow also allowed me to break free from it and basically enjoy food like never before, meaning I literally eat like a king every night and look better than ever. Not just that, but I can freely go out for a whole night or stay up later, all without thinking of food and, most importantly, not having it in my stomach. But please don't get me wrong, when eaten only once a day and before bed, good food is actually fantastic. It does help me fall asleep, get better sleep quality, and in a sense completes my day. Those things, however, by no means make it a necessity, nor the only way of finishing the water. Going through a 2-day fast as easy as a blink of an eye while reaping the cleansing benefits of some white autophagy, aka useless and toxic cell death, my body is full of energy, and when fasted it really doesn't crave sleep, so I can fully enjoy my time doing whatever I want, and especially when traveling or having sex. And just in case you wonder, no, I never party and neither get wasted, yet mentioning total waste reminds me of another example of it. Insanely energy demanding, eating and especially digesting makes me sleepy and tired, and yes, that's in spite of the macronutrient combination. High fat or high carb is just how our bodies work when making the newly ingested food bioavailable. Eliminating that whole thing from my day not only prevents me from wasting energy I can surely use to create something I want, but also ensures my body burns its own stores for fuel. The same I consider as the ultimate for humans. Why that happens? Well, because of the two hormones, insulin and glucagon. Opposites of each other, they have utterly different functions. While the first stores and builds, the second burns and destroys that which has already been stored. When the first is elevated, the latter is not, and vice versa. Therefore, you can't really have a presence of both. Fasting keeps insulin low, but all that ends when calories or things like Gatorade are ingested. Then the body switches from burning to storing mode, and that in fact isn't entirely bad. Done strategically and very infrequently, or in other words, at the right time, with the proper foods and after some results producing resistance training, that not only builds you a remarkable physique, but also drastically boosts your life quality. Though I do not pretend to have some impressive aesthetics, I'm quite confident of soon meeting my own criteria for that. The coolest thing, however, is that my physique really isn't a result of restrictions and calorie tracking, and neither of fitting stuff into my macros, doing cardio, and some nervous system overtaxing workouts. No, I do not mess with any of that, and in fact, kinda feel for the people who do so. What brings me the desired outcome are several things. 1. Working not against, but in conformity with my body's mechanisms and never forcing it to do things it really doesn't want to. 2. Providing it with adequate nutrition. 3. Avoiding fat accumulation and ensuring it makes the most out of that nutrition through high insulin sensitivity. 4. Being what's called very metabolically flexible, or in other words, turning my body into an effortlessly switching fuel sources dual burner, thus operating optimally regardless of what I had on the previous day, carbs and proteins, fats and proteins, or nothing. 5. Being consistent with the right kind of training, high volume, high frequency, and pretty much no rest between sets type of intensity. Last but not least, and though not directly OMAD related, 6. Sexual transmutation, to make the training and many other things in my life possible. And for that you can learn more about in multiple of my other videos and articles. Perspective. Some people call this biohacking. I mostly see it as cooperating with my body so I can get it to do whatever I want and be happy in the process. I know that only then it's willing to do it over and over again, and that the same never happens if I force on it the things it hates. I mean, why should I expect any different since I do the total opposite when that approach is applied to me? As long as I don't forget this, I get the desired results. I know how things are now and also remember how they were in the past. Therefore, sticking to what I do is a no-brainer. Other than that, I really don't give a fuck about terms like keto, paleo or carnivore, nor about if I'm in ketosis or not, and neither of the number of blood ketones I have. The truly substantial are only how I feel, perform and look. To me, the mentioned dots and even the OMAD plan itself are nothing more than mere tools which I use to maintain my lifestyle and as a part of something bigger. They're means and not ends. They also aren't my religion, nor the apex of my self-improvement, but along with NoFap and training, make an extremely substantial part of its foundation. Therefore, I kinda see them as inseparable. Applying, or as I often like to call it, making them work in synergy was the crucial stage of optimizing my performance and attaining the desired look. Now I can create pretty much whatever I want and feel fantastic in my own skin. Combined, those things made the formerly impossible possible and put me on a new life path. The same included acquiring skills I actually didn't dream of and finding the best suiting my persona, spiritual practices. Therefore, to some extent, those things also helped me to start incorporating that kind of a work into my day. The more I mature, however, the more I see that stage as, although vitally important, also preliminary. Given that I cannot imagine life without OMAD, I also don't see it as an all-problem solution, but as a way to merely make life more convenient and allow yourself to much easier come up with better solutions. The Vitruvian Man. Clean from nonsense like when, what and how much to eat, the mind operates with much more free space, making it run way smoother. That contributes to the more frequent and natural creation of new better ideas, while also preserving the number of daily decisions for the times when making the right ones is truly important. That's why I kinda see the properly adjusted OMAD plan as most optimal for those striving to be their own best versions of the Renaissance person. The energy body uses to digest multiple meals can surely be invested in developing various crafts, the span on food and calorie-related dilemmas decisions and willpower preserved for the perfection of art pieces, articles or something else. The truth to the matter is that besides building an inspired by the 70s physique, and of course not thinking of food and calories, that's why I started OMAD 5 years ago. I merely wanted to optimize my creative process regarding music production, filming, editing, and also acquire some better writing skills. And though based on my own empirical study it all worked out, I'm leaving you to decide whether or not it did. Comment me what you think, not just about this video, but also of my two latest tracks, As Above So Below and Self-Sufficiency. You can take this as a sponsored message. Saying it reminds me of the person who inspired me to start OMAD in first place. It was Serge Nubret and what I knew about his wife, a successful actor, author, training innovator, and the best aesthetics of all time having Hall of Famer. To me, his legend will always be a perfect representation of the Renaissance person. And now, let me say this, ultimately my perspective is that anyone should give him or herself a chance and permission to actually taste the taste of not eating. That of being highly metabolically flexible and not dependent on nor emotionally attached to food. Try it for a while and see, most importantly, feel how it feels. Do it as an empirical study and develop your own unbiased perspective. If you don't like it, then great. There always will be plenty of specially engineered products to quickly bring you back to the recent food obsession. If you ask me, however, the total opposite should be one of the most accurate measurements of whether or not a diet actually works. Paleo, keto, carnivore and even organic. To me, those talks really don't mean that much if one is still dependent on food and needs some frequent feedings or butter in his or her coffee to fix mood, blood sugar and cravings. Yet, that really doesn't mean I disvalue food quality. In fact, to me, the same is more important than ever. And that's not because I'm afraid of getting fat. By usually having 2 fasted workouts, I can pretty much burn anything. The reason being is because, besides raw material for my physique, the right kind of food is a drug. Actually, it's 2 different ones. 1, a performance enhancer, and 2, an excellent, no side effects causing sleep med. Basically, rather than to socialize, I use food as a mean to help myself crushing it at whatever I do, get some extra quality sleep, wake up whenever I want, and repeat the whole thing on the next day. Apparently, none of them is related to the actual process of eating. Thank you for your time. Yes, in both cases I feel quite heavy. It's just that food doesn't increase my shyness, or at least it doesn't to that unimaginable extent, and neither causes me to think that everything is stupid.